Welcome to another episode of Dad Always. I am here with a special guest who has been a voice on the podcast before, but this is the first time that you and I are going to be chatting one-on-one, right, Matt?
Absolutely, and I promise I've been to the toilet this time, so I don't need to. I don't need to break halfway through. And
I am pleased to be joined by Matt. Is it Whitehouse or Whitehouse?
No, Whitehouse. Where you're? Oh, you still there?
Yep, still here.
Yeah, where your president lives. So yeah. I'll call him a president. He's just about a president, but so yeah.
Yeah. whatever he is.
Absolutely. So yeah, Whitehouse, mate. Yeah, Whitehouse. Yeah.
All right, Matt Whitehouse, and from the accent, you know that he is not from the United States of America. But as you called it the other day, we are. Would you say that we are cousins? What kind of cousins are we?
Colonial cousins.
Colonial cousins.
And I heard that on the film Green Street. Because obviously there's an American guy who goes over to England for a stay, and he gets called a colonial cousin. So yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So for people who are going to be listening to you for the very first time, Matt, why don't you go ahead and give us a sense of who you are, talk a little bit about the Still Parents podcast and also the Lily Mae Foundation.
Yeah, so lovely to be joining you, mate. I think it's incredible. I say this all the time, but the people that I've met and since I explained my journey and have been some tremendous people, and you are one of them, my friend. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and I see you as a good friend, considering you're miles away. But I think that's what this journey does to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You find that common ground, and I'm from the Lily Mae. Well, I work for the Lily Mae Foundation now. Obviously, there's a backstory to it. Me and my wife lost our firstborn in 2016. Callie was born at 38 weeks and 5 days after a textbook pregnancy, and then unfortunately she passed away after 27 minutes. And this is the conversation we're going to have is relevant to Callie, of course, and work now for the charity full time. It really is the best job I've ever had. I love doing it. I love working for the people I work for. Amy and Ryan are two of the best people I've ever met, and my colleagues now that I work with I'm very fortunate to work with some fantastic people. And yeah, of course, out of that, the podcast was born, and we've it's gone to places we didn't really think or know it would go, considering we started like the way we're talking now, on the computer fight. Well, it'll be 5 years next year. 5 years this year. I always get a damn for this, but because
you guys started in what, 2020?
Yeah, so we recorded in 2020, and then we didn't actually release it, I think, until 2021.
I see. Okay.
There's a bit of technicality here and there, I guess, that kind of thing. But yeah, but it's been a long time, and we've done a lot of episodes. We're very proud where we've brought it to, considering where we started. I still think that we are a pretty humble podcast, to be honest, and try and keep it that way, considering the subject that we talk about.
Well, go ahead and brag a little bit about the award that you guys just won, because it's pretty big, man. It's pretty significant. That, to your point, because I remember in the conversation leading up to before you guys went on the road to the award, you Ryan and Dan, who all three of you co-host the podcast together. You guys were sort of talking about, we're going to be in rooms with media juggernauts here, and feeling kind of like, not that necessarily you didn't belong, but in terms of the scope of the people, the personalities in the room, there is a gap that you guys were feeling between your small, humble little group and then the who's that were going to be present in that room. So go ahead and brag a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think we realised. Look, Dan and Ryan were the. I say this all the time. I turn up and talk on the podcast. You know, like
Yeah.
Dan and Ryan do a lot of the technical stuff behind. They do a lot of the sound work. You know, all that kind of stuff. When they're trying to fix stuff in the studio, I literally just sit and watch. You know, I'm just kind of. You know, I could help, but I'd probably make things worse. So I like to think that I just bring my voice. But yeah, I don't think we realised how big, because you know Dan and Ryan worked really hard on putting because you have to kind of basically put your evidence together to even be nominated. And it doesn't always happen. We tried last year. We tried 2024, and we didn't get a nomination, which is it's fine. It is what it is. Although I don't like that saying, but it actually is what it is. And then this year we were fortunate enough to get nominated in 2 categories, and we just went to enjoy the night. You know, went to enjoy the night. And yeah, we ended up. So we were nominated in the parenting award originally. That was the first one, but then we got an extra nomination in the speciality award, I believe it was, which came out of the blue. We didn't know that one was coming, so that was lovely as well. We didn't get anything in that, but we got a bronze in the
parenting
award,
category.
So we got on the podium for an athlete. I suppose that's what you say, right? You know, he's from the Olympics. It's a podium place, and yeah, we can claim that we are an award-winning podcast, British Podcast Awards, and it was. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think we realised the size of it until we got in the actual room, and you're looking at these podcasts that are going up on the screen because they obviously put the nominations up, and you know, for the American listeners who obviously don't know our radio system or TV system and things like this, the BBC is like our main radio station. Like it's a radio network and TV network, which is huge over here. You know, it's a huge national, thing that has been going for, well, I believe probably since my dad was a little boy. So it's been going for years. And a lot of these podcasts had like production teams behind them, people who, again, ultimately the people who do the podcast would do what I do. They just turn up and talk, but then Dan does all our editing. He works so hard on that and does that. So it takes him hours to do it and stuff. And so then we've got obviously the marketing team, which are, Kat and Lucy, and they're behind it. And then there's me and Ryan and Amy who pitches in with ideas. And yeah, so what's that? 3, 6, 7, 6 people, 6 people altogether.
Let's get into the meat of our conversation, because as you mentioned, you are a bereaved dad and you have been a bereaved father since 2016. Take our listeners back to 2016 and that moment where you find out that you're going to be a father, and walk us through who Matt was, finding out that he's going to be a father to a baby who would ultimately be named Callie, and then the Matt that emerged after the 27 minutes that you had with Callie.
Yeah. Well, and again, just to give your listeners a bit of background as well, obviously I'm now a bereavement support worker. So I work mainly with the dads who've lost on a one-to-one basis, babies. I say all the time, it's completely life-changing. This whole, up until, 2016, life was just what I thought it was. I met Crystal. Yeah. I met Crystal in 2010 originally. I mean, I don't know how I'm married to her really now, because basically she then told one of her friends about me. I met her in a nightclub called Snobs, which was both the best and most horrendous place you could find.
Yeah.
So I met Crystal in Snobs, and then a few days later, it might have been a few days later, she was on the way. She was at university still at that point. She was on the way to university with a friend. I texted her and said, "Lovely to meet you. Really good, but I'm ever so sorry. I'm going to give it a go with this other girl." Yeah.
I mean, kudos for the honesty.
Well, yeah. So, look, we still knew each other across that 2-year period. And I was with my ex, and it never I shouldn't have been with my ex. I should have been with Crystal in the first place. But you know what? You go through these periods again, don't you, where you find yourself, all this kind of stuff, and then eventually we got together properly in 2012. I proposed within 6 months on Christmas Day because I knew that was it then for me. I was ready and all that. And then we got married in 2015 on the 27th of May. And so we always wanted kids, Crystal always wanted to be a mom. And we done a couple of holidays beforehand, did the stuff you can do without kids and things like that, and then we found out about Callie. So she was going to be born in the June. So what's that? We found out in the October 2015, something like that, September, October. And the pregnancy, mate, was as I've said many times, was textbook. Was very smooth. Couldn't have asked for a better pregnancy. They always said that that if they could build a pregnancy, it would be ours, and this, and show it to people. Crystal did all the right things. She did the right stuff as far as eating well, looking after herself, all this kind of stuff was concerned. Then it moved forward. Sorry, mate. I'm just going to move upstairs because Crystal's come back. Yeah. Sorry, mate. 1 second.
Yeah, take your time.
Crystal, say hello to Kelly. This is Kelly from America. This is Crystal, by the way.
Just changing the bulb.
Hey, Crystal.
I've just fallen up the stairs. Can you believe that? You're going to have to edit this out, Kelly. Unbelievable. I've just literally fallen up the stairs.
No way.
I'm all right, though.
You know that's not coming out, right?
Oh, man. Why can I never do a smooth podcast with you? Unbelievable. Yeah. You wait till Ryan and Dan hear about that. That's it. I may as well just retire from work. Seriously.
I just thought you dropped the computer, dude. I didn't.
I just tripped up the stairs. Oh, dear. My life, man. I tell you what, sometimes, I honestly don't help myself. Seriously, my goodness. It's ridiculous. And then I wonder why people take the mick out of me as well. You know what I mean? So,
this is too good.
That's the point,
Yeah.
So where was I?
In retrospect, Matt, what does that feel like? Because I imagine one of the things that you've shared on the Still Parents podcast with many guests. Also, when you were talking about your own story, I think it's been a common theme in any sort of conversation about losing a child. There is this overwhelming feeling of powerlessness that consumes the people experiencing that, right? So, because you feel like, could I have done something? Should I have done something? So here you are, having done everything right, properly, to the point that people want to take it as a snapshot and model and ideal. What does that disconnect then feel like?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we only had one real, say, bad moment, but I suppose it was looking back and reflecting on it. It was just a normal thing to happen during pregnancy, and can happen to women. On Boxing Day in the evening, Crystal was awfully ill with the pregnancy. Like, I had to take her in. I was out somewhere. She didn't come out with us that night. I went out to see some family. And I came back and I had to drive her into hospital because she was just being sick like it seemed like every minute, but I don't think it was, obviously, but it was like she was just being sick and sick and sick. So I took her in that night and they kept her on a kind of drip to make sure they were keeping the fluids up and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I suppose, like I said, and taking you back a little bit to your first question, as far as the being a dad was concerned, I was ready to be a dad. What does it look like when you become a dad? What you're meant to do with life, all this kind of stuff. But we got married, we'd got a house, we'd both got jobs, we'd done it the correct way, so I was ready. And then but I think as far as the moving through the pregnancy is concerned, and to then, as you'll find out when I go into it, to then have it change so rapidly and so quickly, not knowing that it was going to happen. And also, mate, to be honest with you, why would it even cross your mind? I say it all the time. The reason people can't get their head around baby loss is because people don't go into pregnancies thinking they're going to lose a baby.
Absolutely not.
Why would you plan something so wonderful in your life if you end up with so much pain coming out of it? You wouldn't put yourself in unnecessary pain, so yeah. So it was as the months, like I said, as the months moved, it was all good. Crystal won't mind me saying it. She said it on that. She came on our podcast to talk about Callie and stuff, and as a guest, and she said she was pregnant everywhere. Those were her words. She said even her eyes were pregnant. Like, you could see everything. She was so big and stuff. And we got to the June, and it was hot. It was warm, and Crystal had basically had her last midwife appointment to go and see the midwife, and it was because we were at 38 weeks at that point, so it was almost like a sign off. It's like, right, see me one more time, but then you're good to go, right? That's it. And and then I was at home because I was still working in schools then, and I was taken. Obviously, I had the week off. And I was just at home, and then she came back. She said they want me to go up to hospital. I was like, okay, just for sort of a bit of high blood pressure, nothing like major or anything. So we drove up, and again, and this is what I said all the time when I talk about it. Nothing that happened to Callie even came into my mind. Nothing came into my mind at any point that it was going to change, because, like I said, and this is, I'd had a mate who'd lost a baby 6 weeks before us, and even then I didn't think anything. Of course I was sympathetic. I was there for him. I wanted to be there, but I didn't think it was going to happen to us. And then
sure,
they got her up there, and again, you know what it's like, Kelly. You've been through it. You're in hospitals. You're waiting around. You're sitting and stuff, and yeah, the doctors said that they just wanted to keep her in overnight as a precaution, just to kind of make sure she was okay, really, and keep an eye on her. They were going to probably send her home the next day, but like just, and we were pleased with that because they were being careful. And so I went home to get some stuff for her because obviously she'd come up with nothing, not knowing she was going to stay there. I went back and then stayed with her till 9 o'clock. And then the men have to go home. Then you can't stay on the wards. So I drove home. We were texting each other till she fell asleep, and then that was it. And then I woke up the next morning to my phone going. I'd left my phone on loud, obviously. And my phone went off, and she said, "You need to come up because they're taking me in for emergency C-section." I was like, "Okay." So pack the car, put all the stuff in, put all the car chair, everything like that. Text my friends, said, "Look, this is it. Looks like this is it." And they were like, "Yep, gonna meet your daughter and all that." and yeah, and I've told this story so many times, but went up there and got into the reception area, and it just got kind of moved quickly by a midwife. Sort of, they said, "Oh, is
All
okay?"
right, go ahead.
Yeah,
Mhm.
got moved quickly. They said, "Is this Mr. Whitehouse?" I said, "Yeah." Moved me into a room. I took a book with me because I just didn't know how long I was going to be there. I didn't know how long C-sections took. I had no real knowledge of it and all that kind of stuff. The midwife came in, and Laura, who was just a wonderful person, and she said, "Callie's been born, but she's poorly." I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" She said, "Well, the doc," and I'm assuming that this is from years down the line. I don't think midwives are allowed to break the news that I got. I think it's got to be a doctor. I'm assuming it's
Okay.
seniority, I guess, that kind of stuff, right? And yeah, she said the doctor will be in a minute to just let you know what's going on. I was like, okay, fine. So again, just sat again, nothing entered my mind. I probably knew there was, of course, after finding out Callie was poorly, I was like, all right, but she's in the best place, right? She's in hospital. There's people here. It's literally their job to look after her.
At no point at that time are you thinking death in any way, shape, or form.
No, no, nothing. And again, I'll remember it till this day. I always will. And I was sitting in the room, and give you a bit of kind of what the room looked like. I was just sat facing. I was facing a window, and a bed was in there. And again, I remember it. And the door was kind of behind me, and the doctor come in, and I just knew. She was, because she come in, and I've said it so many times. She's a doctor, but she's human, and
Mm-hmm.
her eyes were just like, you could tell, right? And it was either she was going to tell me something had gone seriously wrong with Callie, or wrong with Crystal, or wrong with both of them. And
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, and then she just broke the news that they'd done everything they could, but Callie had sadly passed away. And that's, like I said, that's the moment when your life just changes forever. Literally that. And it's mad because you then, and it's a completely other end, kind of away from the story's concerned. But, like, for example, me and Crystal talked this week, and we've decided she's been wanting to do the floor in the living room for like ages, so we're going to do the floor, and we're going to get a few other things. And can we afford it? Yeah, we can, but it's going to take a bit of maneuver and all this kind of stuff. But actually, we want to do it, so let's do it. Because when your life changes like that, your view then changes on life. And yes,
Mm.
I always say to my clients, I of course I still have worries and challenges, but nothing will be as bad or as hard as what we faced 9 years ago.
So this week, I heard someone speaking, and she made a statement that resonated deeply with me. And it was in the context of families, parents who have to make decisions for their child. And the way and I know that's not necessarily was a part of your
Mm.
experience, but I'm wondering if what she says would resonate with you. So, in the context of having to make complex medical decisions for your child as a parent, you are making a decision for a future version of yourself that has not yet been realized, because that future self cannot exist unless that decision is
Yep.
made. And so, in a similar way, what I'm hearing from you is, you are proceeding with everything routine. I mean, you have the car seat in the car, you have the bags, you have the book because you don't know how long you're going to be there. You're doing everything that you're supposed to do. You're doing everything that you're expected to do. And then this event is happening simultaneously with a version of yourself that is about to change, and you just have zero knowledge, you have zero sense of timing, you have zero sense of awareness that the same person who is sitting with this book in this room right now is about to be completely different. So what when you reflect on that, how have you been able to help some of your clients navigate that? I don't know what the right term is, Matt, because it's not necessarily disassociation. It's really a severing of identities that occur, and it's a split. Yet the split is happening within one body, within one life, but it's just two completely different ways of relating to the self at that moment because of the event. How have you been able to either you process through that, or help the clients that you've spoken to, other bereaved dads, process through the significance of that split that happens?
It's it's one of the most complex journeys that I've ever, well, hopefully will be on for will ever experience in life. You know, when you lose a child, Kelly, you cannot help changing. You're not in control of it. There's no control. You know, I remember, you know, the early days and the early moments we had with Callie, because we had 2.5 days with her in the hospital. Once we knew that we were pregnant and we were ready for that moment, when I was holding her one time in the hospital, I just literally broke down, had no control of it, and I just said all I wanted to be was be a dad. Look, since then, I've realised that, you know, we are dads. You know, we're just different dads. We're angel dads. You know, whatever you want to call it, right? The changing of character and personality and stuff. Again, like I said, it just, sadly there isn't a choice. You know, it just happens automatically because grief, as we know and you know, there are parts of grief that you just cannot control. You literally can't control it, and this is why especially dads struggle with it, because they want to control things. They want to be able to keep a certain level of focus on the family, on protecting the family, on looking after the family, and they can't do it because they're so broken themselves that they and then they can't accept it. You know, because I went on a radio show a couple of weeks back, and to talk about my experience and stuff, and I was asked on there by the guy who was doing the interview with me. He said, were you, what was your communication like before, or sorry, has communication helped you since losing Callie, and what does that look like? Well, I said to him, obviously, what you got to remember with me is I'm from a coaching background. So I'm from a background of working within sports coaching for 21 years. You know, 25 years now. Obviously, I haven't done as much over the last 3 years, but I started coaching when I was 17. And it's communication. You know, you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to get your message across. You have to be able to talk to people one-to-one basis, group basis, bigger group basis, whatever you want to call it. You have to be able to communicate in different areas. So when we lost Callie, my natural go-to was to talk about her. I look back and I think if I hadn't have talked about Callie, I think I'd be in a much, much different place. And when we lost her, there was nothing really around as far as support for dads were concerned, because again, at that point, we didn't know about Lily Mae Foundation. We found out about it a few months after, because we went and did the fun run with them. But before that, so I was looking around and there was just nothing on. No dads talking about this. No one I could connect with. All that. So I started blogging, and I started writing a blog about how I was feeling, what I was going through, all the stuff that came with it. And obviously it's led to the book, which hopefully is going to be released for Callie's 10th birthday next year. But yeah, I think the change is very difficult to accept, Kelly, because in general, I'm like a puppy dog. You know, I like people to like me. You know, I've always had that. I see the best in everyone, or I try to. You know, of course there are exceptions, but in general, I try and see the best in everyone. And then if things happen and they let me down, then fair enough, or not fair enough, but that's what happens. But I like to see the best in people, and like I said, I like people to like me. I hate the feeling of letting people down. Don't like it. You know, I don't. I've got a lot better as I've got older, and since Callie came along, I've got a lot better at accepting that I'm not going to please everyone. You can't. It's impossible to please everybody. But I still try, you know, so when this happened, it was very difficult for me, because how do you remain positive? How do you see the sunshine? How do you see the things that are meant to make you happy? And so, you know, I obviously went through, and again, I think I did shift some of my feelings out of the way a little bit, my emotions out of the way to care for Crystal, because, you know, I'd never seen a person so broken as her, you know, when we lost. So I knew that I had to click into gear a little bit, to kind of look after us as a couple, protect us as a couple, and help her through, especially through those early stages. Look, she helped me as well massively, and she has done. But yeah, so the change is a real tough one, because you are right. You're almost like split in half. One stays wherever it is, and the other one goes off in a distance. And then I do with my clients, I do it with my hands. So I've got Matt before we lost Callie, and Matt after we lost Callie, and this hand had to get back to know this hand, and they slowly got back together. And I feel now, and I'm bearing in mind I'm 9 years down the line now, and it hasn't taken me 9 years to get this point, of course, but I'm now 90% back to what I was before we lost Callie. I'll never say I'm 100%, because that 10% I feel is Callie. That 10% is the 10% that reminds me that what we've been through and our journey and everything that we've faced. So I try to point out to the clients that you are probably going to be different, more than likely. There's going to be a new version of yourself. You know, there's going to be things that come into your character that you didn't know you had, you didn't know were there. You know, again, like a lot of people, I remember being very angry and frustrated at the start. I didn't physically show it, but it was in there. Yeah, and I didn't like that, because, you know, unless it's football, there's two versions of me. There's Matt, and then there's football Matt. Football Matt's very different to normal Matt. Football Matt can be loud and angry and scary and passionate and all this. But then, you know, when you're in a coaching environment, like I've just taken a new role on at as you might have seen, so I announced it on Facebook, at a new club, and
yeah, I saw that. Congratulations, by the way.
But if I go on to that training pitch with a group of men, because they are men, and I'm a bit of a wilting flower, and I'm not loud, and I'm not kind of disciplined in my approach, and I'm not trying to direct them and stuff, why would they listen to me? You know? So I have got that side, but it's like I said, it's football side, you know, compared to normal. So But yeah, you have to get to know yourself again, Kelly. You have to get to know your partner again. You have to get to know your friendship groups again. You have to get to know your life again. And I say that very blasé, but
But the point is, all of that goes under transformation, right? I mean, there's the changes and the way that losing a child sends out ripple effects throughout your life. These are things that it may take an entire lifetime to really get a sense of how much everything has changed. I mean, your friendship group inevitably is going to change because the way that your friends relate to you now after a loss, especially if they are incapable of empathizing or even relating with what you've gone through, people start to isolate themselves. And you, as the bereaved parent, you start to isolate
yeah,
yourself because it becomes very difficult to relate with people whose experience is entirely different than yours. I remember saying this to a family at work recently. I said, you have to live with the knowledge, you have to live with the life experience of having a medically complex child. And in your case, of losing a child, your life has been in a state of intense discomfort and anxiety and what have you because of the circumstances that create that. If I am outside of that, Matt, and I'm your friend, I have the option to join you, but then also have the privilege to be like, I don't want to have any kind of exposure to that and just go back to my
yeah,
life as usual. And I'm not saying that it's
yeah,
right or wrong. That's just the dynamic. So I shared with that family, I said, you should by no means feel obligated to be mindful of somebody else's discomfort because their discomfort has a beginning and an end time, right? It's for a short period of time. Yours, on the other hand, is just perpetual. So, yeah, you're going to have to, or you will eventually, as the bereaved parent, you'll eventually learn to walk within it and to function within it, right? And to embrace it as much as you possibly can because of that process of transformation that we're talking about. But for me, if I'm like, oh my God, if I come back home and I tell Michelle, like, babe, I spoke with Matt and he just dropped this really heavy thing on me about losing Callie. Oh my God, it made me feel so uncomfortable. I can go to bed tonight, wake up the next day, and don't even have
yeah,
to worry about it.
yeah, yeah. And no, you're absolutely right. And that's why I say now that I think with maturity as well, um, there are people now not in my life anymore that were a massive part of my life beforehand. Um, and I've come now to accept that that's just they were meant to be friends when they were friends at that point, but they're not friends anymore. I might see them, but I wouldn't spend any time with them, and you know, and also Kelly. To be honest with you, I haven't got the time or the energy for it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I haven't got the time. I haven't got the energy. I also want to be surrounded by, and it is that cheesy cliche thing, but I want to be surrounded by the radiators. I want to be surrounded by the people who bring me good energy, you know, also people that I can have honest conversations with, but it's never personal, you know? And
Mhm.
the one prime example in my life of that now is Ryan, because Ryan is a friend, but he's my boss. And the fact is that we have that. We have to understand that relationship. I understand it completely. You've met Ryan. You know what Ryan is. Ryan is like down the middle. You take it or you don't. That's. But
100%.
I accept that because I'm mature enough to understand that he's my boss as well, but he's a really, really good friend. And I know that he knows how to separate things as well as me. But then there's other people in my life that, that are still here because they are just special. And I talk about him all the time, but Rob, my best mate, is
Mm-hmm.
just, without him, I don't know where I'd be. And he has just tried to just do what he thinks is right. He hasn't tried to do anything like spectacular. Like I've said already, he hasn't tried to do anything spectacular. He's just got it. But he hasn't got it where we have to talk about Callie all the time. We don't have to talk about loss. We don't have to talk about what I've been through. He's just done what I believe a mate is meant to do.
And you know what, Matt? I think that's an important thing that you are mentioning, especially from the perspective of the person who is not the bereaved parent, but is there to support as a friend, as a relative, a church member, a colleague, some other relationship that is outside of the immediate circle of the bereaved. It's not necessarily a matter of we always got to talk about the loss. We always have to. It's not about that. One thing that you share with me in a conversation that we're having, and I think it's also one of those common things across the board for every bereaved parent, is that there is a level of cutting through the BS that just becomes natural. Like in your interaction and engagement with other people, you have a low tolerance for all of the superficial stuff, and when someone is showing up and are sincere. And so if someone shows up and you get that energy that they're kind of like tap dancing around, well, I don't know if I can say this thing because it might be offensive and this, and like, you can just sense that. And there are people you don't have to you you don't have to know all the right things to say, but you also don't need to have this fear and anxiety of not saying the right thing. If your presentation, if your energy, if your intention is to truly support the person who is bereaved, then I think, my God, I think that's a very good place to
Yeah.
start off.
No, absolutely, fully agree. And I say, when I do any training or any work with people who are looking to think about talking to bereaved parents and how they should talk about them and stuff, I say to them, like, we don't need rocket science. We don't need special treatment. In general, this is why I'm doing stuff like this. I love talking about Callie. I'm so proud of her, like I am proud of Etta, my other daughter. I'm proud of them because for the short, and I talk about Callie with pride because look at what she's given me. Look at what
Mm-hmm.
she's given me. She is, yes. If I could bring her back in an instant, I would bring her back. Right,
Absolutely.
without question. But sadly and logically, we know that's never going to happen. But she has given me so much since we lost. She's, I didn't get help for Callie for 6 years because I thought that I was okay. And Etta came along 18 months after, and we got into physical parenting and all that, and what goes with it. And eventually I got my help because I needed my help. And again, without Callie, I wouldn't have got help. I wouldn't have even opened up to counselling. I wouldn't have opened up to anything like that. And she's given me this job. She's given,
Yeah.
she has. Without her,
Yeah.
I would be a sports coach still. And that's fine because I liked being a sports coach. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being in the schools, working with the kids, all that kind of stuff. But she has given me this role, and it is the best thing I've ever done. So that's why I say to my clients, I can't be sad a lot of the time about Callie now, right? I I can be proud of her. I can be proud of what we've done as a couple, how we've come through this, and how we're still together, and how we are as a family. And also, I can be proud of her for what she's done and achieved, because she's achieved it. You know, she hasn't physically achieved it, but she's achieved it by me and Crystal doing what we've done since. You know, and
100%. 100%. This is actually a perfect tee off to the concluding part of our conversation to give you a chance to talk about a concrete way in which you are planning to honor Callie, given that her 10th birthday is coming up next year. The whole premise of That Always is precisely everything that you just mentioned. And it's framed within this context, Matt. When we love something or someone, and in this case, someone, love is often more naturally expressed in or to a physical, tangible, present entity. In the absence of all of that, especially in the absence of all of that, love takes another form, which is called grief. And we can still, though, love that person in their absence, but not always through grief, because that can also turn back into love, just expressed in a different way. And so what I love about everything that you just said is, and I want listeners to pay close attention to that, you have never spoken about Callie during this, however long we've been in this conversation, in the past tense. It's been in the present tense, because although she died 9, almost 10 years ago, her presence continues to live on, and her place in your family continues to influence the way in which you as a dad, Crystal as a mom, Etta as a sister, move as a family unit. And look, it takes a long time to get there, and everyone has their own process in order to get there. And you're obviously speaking from a perspective of being almost a decade into your grief journey after losing Callie. Nevertheless, it doesn't have to stay in a place of I'm going to put this on the shelf and never have to look at it again. I sincerely believe, and I think you do too, that even after something so gut-wrenchingly, unimaginably devastating, there are moments, there is a season of gift giving that comes out of it. And I'm not saying that it happens for that purpose. What I'm saying is that devastation can also bring about a season of, a moment of, a lifetime of little gifts, of realizing how much more your priorities become refined, aligned, who you are, the whole identity thing that we spoke about, all of that begins to show you as the person how it is that you can live a new version of life that is that much more fulfilling. So the concrete question I want to ask you is, in what way, in the spirit of Dad Always, in what way are you planning on continuing to honor the memory of Callie in this year coming up, 2027, as we're recording this November of 2026?
Record November 2026, 2025.
Holy smokes. I just shot us into the future. Wait, what?
I did. No, it's fine. Listen, because that talk was unreal, man. It genuinely was, and you were in that moment. And then I was like, then I thought, like, okay, yeah, like, you know what? Listen, I wish it was November 2026, because I'd only have a month left of my challenge.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm speaking it into the future that you still have something to do in 27, right? So yeah, we're obviously in November 2025, and we are looking forward to November or to the year 2026. And you made this announcement on your Facebook page, what, about a
about
month
6
ago
weeks,
now?
something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And so as of the time of this recording, you haven't begun what you are about to begin, the journey that you're about to begin in 2026. But by the time this is released, I believe you would have already been at least at the beginning portion of it, or maybe like a month or so into it. So, anticlimactic or not, give us the reveal of how it is in this concrete way, because the challenge that I want to give our listeners is for bereaved dads to,
I'm just plugging my laptop in, mate. Carry on. Sorry.
for bereaved dads to discover in what ways they can continue parenting the memory of their child. And I think what you are doing, or what you are about to do, is so fascinating, and it gives a concrete example of that. So here we are in November 2025. In what concrete way are you going to continue honoring the memory of your daughter, Callie, come January 2026?
So, some people will say it's stupid. Some people will say it's crazy. Just to give you a small bit of background and a bit of a caveat to it, I'm a runner. I run, in general, I run 20 to 25 miles a week. That I normally run kind of 4 days during the week. And Callie was born on 1st of June. We had her funeral on the 29th. So in general, through June, I do a running challenge. So I've done various ones. I've done David Goggins challenges for people who know him. I've done 4x4 by 24. So run 4 miles every 4 hours for 24 hours. I've then done the same, but I've done it for 48 hours. I've run 40 miles in a day from my house to the Lily May office and back in a day. This year I ran 9k a day throughout the whole of June, because she was obviously 9 this year. I realised that the thing is with these, Kelly, as well, which I'll get into, that once you've done these challenges and your body has gone to a place that you didn't think it could go to, and it's handled it, and then it's like, okay, it's like, you're like, what's next? What can we do next? So yeah, next year, because she's 10, I've decided that I'll be running 10k a day for the whole of 2026. So every single day.
And this is the place where people would be like, yo, this dude crazy as hell.
But I get what I've found so far since I've told people, and I'm actually quite enjoying telling new people now face to face, because I get to see their reaction. I get one of two reactions. I normally get, well, that's just nuts, or I get I get like a blank face, and it's almost like people have, like, they've misheard me. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So it basically it works out that I'll run 2,263 miles throughout the year. That's what the mile count is. So I don't go on kilometers. A lot of people go on kilometers, but I go on miles. I'm old school, I suppose. That's right.
You're American.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So yeah, I realised that it had to be big, because she's 10. 10's a number that's built up, isn't it? It's 10 years. It's for me, yeah, okay, I'm doing this challenge, so it's a bit of irony that I don't. 10's 10, 10 is 10, but it's a big number, of course. So I knew that I had to do something. I think part of it as well, Kelly, and I'll be completely honest with you, I think part of it is that, and being completely honest and open, I'm worried about 10. I'm worried about it being 10 because it's a big number, because it's built up. And normally I run through June. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just do something every day, because that'll balance me out, maybe, So of course, I'm not going to be. One of the main people I've had to settle down over this challenge is my mom. She's been like, because I'm still her boy, right? She's 73. I'm still her boy, and so she's got two friends called Carol and Pat, and they're like around the same age as her. Carol's actually older than her. And I walked into the house one night, and she went, "Me and Carol and Pat have been talking, and we think he's dangerous." I was like, "Oh my god, here we go! I'm in some trouble here now." Like, because the old women have been talking about it, like, and I'm in some trouble here.
The council has convened.
So I said, right, I'm not going to be stupid about it. Look, it's one of them. The main thing of the challenge is to run every day, right? That's what I want to do. But of course, if I have some kind of stomach bug, right, or I'm really ill, or touch what I won't be, or I pick up an half decent injury that stops me running, I'm not going to get out of bed and go and run a 10K, because that would be stupid, you know. And I'd be putting my health in a compromising position, and I don't want to do that, you know. Of course. So and I will be releasing another video towards the back end, like in the next few weeks or so, to say that yes, the challenge is to run every day, but if it doesn't quite happen, the miles are the things that I will be hitting across the year. So I will definitely be hitting 2,263 miles. So if for some reason I have to have 2 or 3 days off, I will make those miles up on other runs. So I'll do like a 11K. I'll do a 12K at the weekend when I've got a bit more time, just to make sure the miles are then caught up again, sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, in that sense, the goal is to hit the miles, because it would all total up to the breakdown of running every single day.
But of course, I will run every day as long as my body allows. And you know what? I've had lots of people talk to me about it. Are you sure? You know it's tough, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, it is, right? But there has never been any doubt in my mind. Never, not once, right? I've never gone, am I pushing myself a little bit here, right? I've never thought that I can't do this, because you know what, Kelly, there's a couple of things that come into play here for me that are big. And it's a quote from David Goggins, and for people who don't know David Goggins, he's a very, very famous motivational speaker. He's done challenges that they are ridiculous, you know. I think he was a Marine as well. He says that when people doubt you, it's because they can't see themselves doing what you're about to do. Right?
100%.
And that's how I see it. It's fine for people to doubt me. I listen, if I wasn't a runner and I found out someone was doing this, I would be like, whoa, what? Really? Because you can't see yourself doing it, right? But I know I can see myself doing it, right? And the other thing is, Kelly, that is, and I stand by this through my running anyway, it will be hard. You know, I'll get to places like in March where we're not even halfway through the year, and I've been running. And I'd be like, gotta go out for another run tomorrow, this, that, and the other. There will be moments like that. I know that, right? But nothing will be as hard. And you know what's coming already. Nothing will be as hard as what we faced this time 9 years ago.
100%.
Right? Nothing. And all I have to do, which I don't do very often, is reach back to that moment and go, you know what? Come on, man. Get out of bed. I've been turning away 6 a.m. runs for a while now. I've been able to do them at different parts of the day, but I've done 2 6 a.m. runs this week, and I've got out of bed. And by the way, it's cold over here now. I don't know what it's like over there, but it's got
it's a little chilly over here too.
The temperature's just dropped over here, and I've gone out twice this week at 6 o'clock, and but I've instantly felt better. I'm like, this because I'm out and it's like cold and I'm running and I'm back and I've done it for the day. That's me done now. That's my bit done for the day. And so yeah, it is. Don't get me wrong. It's nuts. I know it's nuts. I know it's hard. I know that it's going to be challenging, but it's meant to be. And I'm setting a goal of raising £5,000 for the charity as well. And look, if I hit that £5,000, fantastic. If I hit half of it, brilliant, right? But the money's the money. The money will help the charity, of course it will. But it's, for me, it's doing it for Callie, but it's also raising the awareness of baby loss as well. Why is this man doing this? He's doing it because of this, because of baby loss, because he's been through this. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing in 2026.
Yeah, dude. I think that's brilliant. And again, to just reiterate the point, nothing that you could ever do for the rest of your life will be as challenging and as difficult as what you and Crystal went through 9 years ago. And I think that's the one of the gifts of being in this place that you are now, having that perspective. One of the quotes that I am trying to really live by, and I don't know who says it, but I heard it somewhere in a sports advertisement. Maybe I saw it. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And that to me it fits perfectly with what you're saying. So I am obviously rooting and cheering for you. Obviously offering you the platform anytime you want to give us updates. I know you're going to be updating folks on your Facebook page, and most likely going to be using the Still Parents podcast platform to update people also. I think it's brilliant. Absolutely. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think it is a mammoth of a challenge, but absolutely, like the moment you said it, it made so much sense. So I want to encourage other listeners to, maybe they don't have to go as big,
No.
or they don't have to
No.
do what you're doing. And
Exactly.
that's the point,
Exactly.
right? It's not about how do I compete against Matt to show that I
No.
love my child.
No.
It's not about that at all. Within your context, the challenge is, how can you think about ways that are meaningful, that will keep you connected to the memory of your child in such an intimate way, in order to bring more meaning, more awareness, whatever else, more purpose to yourself, awareness to the rest of the world about this devastating impact of losing a child. So Matt, I can't thank you enough, my guy, for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. I will give you the floor for any final comments, things that you
No,
want to
Kenny,
say.
thank you. Just thank you, because ultimately, and I'm going to go right back to the start of the conversation about what you said. What's changed over the 9 years since we lost her? Things like this is what's changing it. Because 9 years ago there was nothing like this. There was no podcasts. There was no talks. There was no conversations. There was no men talking to each other. Out and then putting it out in the public eye. And however many people listen to it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who, as long as it's there for people to listen to and grasp, then that's what we're doing it for. And I know that in general, Amy and Ryan don't do soppy with me too much, and I tried to do it at the awards show, and I said to them, thank you for what you've given me. And they're like, oh, brilliant. No worries. But I genuinely mean it from the bottom of my heart. They've given me this chance and this opportunity to. It goes beyond the job. It goes beyond what I do on a daily basis. This has given me the chance to hopefully help other parents understand this loss, try and deal with this loss, and try and move through the process a little bit easier. And like I said, I'm proud of me and Crystal. We've come a hell of a long way since it happened. Proud that we're still together, and I couldn't do any of this without her anyway. But yeah, thank you, mate. That's all I can say. And thank you for allowing me the time to come on and share what, you know, and just have another conversation about this. You know, that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, dude. I
Thank you.
appreciate you, man.